Hello everyone, Andrew Bowring again here. Gonna take you through some new concepts today, some things that I want you to have a bit of a think about. But what I want to talk today about is about explaining to you how it is you can become wealthy. Something that everybody I think out there just needs a little bit more clarification, a little bit more information about. And so that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to tell you about a rule book, the 4 rules of how to become wealthy. Now, I know it sounds like an oversimplification, but the bottom line is there are 4 simple rules that just about every single wealthy person has put into play and has led to them being ultimately successful. And like all things in life, most things do come with a rule book. I mean, if you look at, say, for example, just going and driving a motor car, it comes with a rule book. A pilot, for example, who's going to fly an aeroplane, there's a checklist and rule book about when he can and when he can't take off. And if we don't follow those rules, it's highly unlikely that we're going to have a successful car trip or a successful flight. So what we want to focus on today is exactly what those 4 rules are and how those 4 rules can lead you to a position where you can lead a wealthy life. And that's what your coach wants. He wants you to put in place rules that are going to lead to you being ultimately wealthy and wealthier. So sit back and let's go through it. Thanks.
Okay, rule number 1, pay yourself first. We all have bills to pay, the electricity, mortgage, payments, groceries, that sort of stuff. But in actual fact, the rich don't pay these bills first. The first person that they pay out of every pay packet, out of every dollar earned, is they take 10% of that money and they use that to pay themselves. So they pay that into a separately managed savings account, which they might not necessarily be able to touch, but it leads them to one simple rule, and this is the 10% rule, that you always take 10% of everything you earn and you use that as the first payment to you. After a while, your 10% savings start to build up, and you can see that the account you've set aside is performing pretty well. Now, you cannot allocate 10% of your income if you're wasting money on things that you don't need. So if you can't allocate that 10% now, figure out what it is you're wasting money on, stop wasting the money on that, and put that into the 10% rule. So remember, before you pay a single bill that's owing, before you pay anyone, you pay yourself first. Now, rule number 2 is that you become an investor. As your savings start to grow on the 10% rule, you can start looking at ways that you can actually invest money. Now, your money can be put to work just like you work. It can deliver a return in exactly the same way that you do for selling your labour. And you can invest in lots of different ways. You can invest in real estate, you can invest in shares, you can invest in mortgages and bonds or in a business. There's lots of different investment alternatives out there. But for most of us, we're not earning our income out of providing that kind of advice. Most of us kind of know the basics, but we don't have the education or the skills to be able to be 100% certain. And so this leads us into our 3rd rule. And the 3rd rule states, get advice. Why would you invest your money without advice? Would you fly a helicopter without the advice of an experienced pilot or a trainer? Would you try and climb Mount Everest without the advice and assistance of, say, a Sherpa or a guide? Or would you you're going to build a house for yourself? Are you going to get a builder, or are you going to sort of try and put one together yourself? We all have individual skills, and not all of us have an absolute depth of knowledge with regards to investment markets. So it's a bit the same with money. There's an old saying that a fool and his money are easily parted. And there are lots of sharks out there just waiting for that fool to turn up. They'll try and convince you that investing money is easy, that you'll make millions. And the truth of the matter is that they'll get paid fairly handsomely for convincing you to make a poor decision. Some will make investment decisions based on what they hear from their friends or their family or something they heard on TV. None of these people have necessarily any qualification to give advice, and most of them are actually poorer than you because they haven't yet discovered rule number 1, which was our 10% rule. So the true investors, they seek advice. They work to learn about the investment they're considering by listening to independent experts and by reading and understanding what they're doing, which leads us into rule number 4, which is only invest in what you actually understand. Investing is pretty simple in essence. What we want to do is invest in things that are going to grow in value, deliver us a return. But always remember there's a sub-rule here that says that if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. The best way to learn about successful investing is to seek advice from someone who has succeeded as an investor. Now, if your parents have been great investors and they're successful financially, then by all means talk to them. If your business partner is a great investor, talk to him or her. But if you don't know a great investor, make sure that you get professional advice from someone who can help you and someone that has no interest in the investment itself. So in summary, let's just go through these 4 rules again. Rule number 1, pay yourself first. Really the critical foundation of this whole discussion. Rule number 2, become an investor. Rule number 3, get advice. And rule number 4, only invest in what you actually understand. If you follow these rules, you'll see your wealth grow. Every wealthy person has adopted and ingrained these rules into their everyday life. Everyone needs help to stay on track with the 4 rules. We're kind of creatures of habit here, and usually we're creatures of bad habits. So we need to be taught, we need to be disciplined, we need to be encouraged to stay on track and to follow these rules. So that's it, folks. Please feel free to visit our website. Obviously, share this page and information with your friends. And I look forward to talking to you next time. Thank you.